Welcome to Discover the Difference, a podcast brought to you by C3. I'm your host, Jamie Reed, alongside my sometimes lavender-wearing co-host, Gabriel Earl. Today, we have a one-of-a-kind guest in Manna Kadar. And if you've never met somebody who at 16 acquires her own business and then levels it up multiple times to build a beauty empire, today's your day, because Manna is like no other. She brings spunk, energy, and professionalism to everything she does, and she's gonna inspire you with her story. So enjoy this podcast with Manna.
Why don't you just give us a little backdrop on MannaKadar and how we got to this place?
Why you're in this pink palace?
Yes, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. So I started out in the beauty industry when I was 16, and I had an opportunity to purchase a retail cosmetic store in the Brea Mall here in Orange County. So
at 16 you did?
Yeah.
Literally, you bought a company at 16?
I bought a retail location and its inventory. Sure, a company. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I was 16. It came about through relationships, right? And actually, I used to work for a risk management or insurance broker.
What?
Back in the day.
You just holding that back until we went live?
Oh, now we're aligned. We're
yes.
aligned.
So I worked with this insurance broker. I was his admin at the time, and he had very high net worth, celebrity clients in Beverly Hills. So I would answer the phones, and
I know who he is.
Probably I'll tell you later. So I would answer all the phones, and I was like the main person that the conduit between him and his clients, and they didn't know how old I was because I was so professional for 16, right? So anyways, there was one client in particular I was doing a lot of work for, and he happened to be remarried, and he purchased this location for his wife, and she thought she wanted to run a retail beauty location. And it sounds glamorous. When you get into the nitty gritty of having a retail store, it's like in a mall, it's 362 days a year, it's teeny bopper employees, so it's very, very challenging to operate. So he's like, you seem like a bright person. He's never met me in person. So he's like, well, here's the opportunity to purchase a store. What do you think? And I'm like, sure. Like, I really didn't recognize what purchasing a business would entail, right? So I had,
How could you?
Well,
16.
Right. Ignorance is bliss. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So mom had saved all of my, birthday money, Christmas money, Chinese New Year money. And at the time in banking, I could walk up to the bank and still withdraw money without my mom having to co-sign or whatever it was. So purchased the business, and this was 2006. Economy was doing pretty good, but
wait, so you walk into the bank and you're like, I'm taking all my money out?
It wasn't all of it, but it was a lot of it.
And they ask you what you're doing with it
No.
at 16?
No.
No? You're just like, all right, I'm taking
I
this to
was,
closing.
You just took it out in cash, put it in a brown paper bag.
It was like a little, check. And anyways, so what was cool was that I just had to assume the lease. I didn't have to start a new lease because otherwise I don't think my credit would
You'd qualify, yeah.
But, and so it began. One store led into the next and the next and the next. And then within 6 years, I had 7 stores. I went from Orange County, San Diego County, and then Fashion Show Mall in Las Vegas. So
wow.
I figured out the model of how to make that successful. And it was a really cool experience. There was a lot of people, men and women, that would walk into the store, and each person had a really unique problem, whether it's color that they're looking for, a hot day, something that they're trying to fix, like I'm uncomfortable with this or that, like let's find a solution for these people. So it was a grind. Like I said, many days. Employee pool was challenging because usually people that work at the mall, it's not a career job for them, so they're not putting all their resources and investing a lot of time and education into that. So
and how old are you when you had all these stores?
From 16 to 21.
So how were you doing that while in high school? in college?
I would do it after high school, and then I went to SC. So then I would basically schedule all of my classes like the earliest possible, like at I think 8 o'clock to 11 or 12, and then from 12 to 9 I would be in the stores, and then repeat.
Wow.
And so I went to business school, and so my business school professors really they're like, okay, you know, I have to leave early. I can't be at this what do they call it, lab or whatever it was, like the extra classes. I'm like, I have to go do the business, right? Because we're here to do business.
Going to the real lab.
Yeah, so it was really a cool experience. It was almost like akin to having like an MBA type of experience, because I would learn marketing concepts. I'm like, oh, cool, let me apply it directly to what I'm doing, you know, in the stores at the time. So I had the stores all the way up until 2001, 9/11 happened. And then it was very eerie because the malls were just empty. Like, there's basically the people that work there, and that was it. So I had several offers before to purchase the chain, and at that time I was like, you know what, I'm kind of burnt out with this. So I sold the chain, graduated college, and then I had a finance degree. So one of my friends was like, I just got a job as a business analyst at Comerica Bank. You want to interview? And I'm like, okay. I had no idea what a business analyst was even, but apparently I said enough to get the job. So then I went into corporate banking for a number of 6 or 7 years after that, and learned all about corporate finance, lending, structures, and by the end of it I was managing the med device division at a regional bank here.
Wow. So you went from being an entrepreneur at 16 to corporate world. What was that like? Like running your own company to working for the
man, like literally the man. It was an interesting transition, and it wasn't not so much from a management perspective. Like, I actually really appreciated learning different types of structures, you know, meetings, what corporate meetings look like versus, you know, just casual meetings that you have with employees. It was very political, you know, and so there's lots of rules and lots of reports, and at the time it was still very much a male-dominated industry, and I've never been afraid of that challenge. Like, for me, I was like, okay, well, let me just prove myself through performance, which is what I did, and that's how I rose the ranks so quickly. So that was a great challenge to overcome, but the wardrobe sucked. Like, this is back in the day where you had to wear like pantyhose still, and I'm like, oh my God, pantyhose. Like, that could have been almost a singular reason why I wanted to exit corporate banking. But it was just a stuffy industry, you know, lots of rules, and but I really appreciated learning the other side of business. Like, there's doing the actual business, but then learning all the financial models and structures behind it, and taking my education and learning like where the numbers flow and how they flow and why they flow. And it has really helped to catapult me to where I am, you know, today.
Well, so you rise through the ranks there. Then what's the next transition?
So I was bored really with the corporate banking model, and I was like, okay, let me try to find a business. I wanted to like dip my toe back into entrepreneurship. So let me find a business that I could still kind of keep my job, because it was a nice cushy job, lots of days off, and, you know, lots of vacation time. And while I can still kind of manage a business on the side, what business can you do that where it semi-automates itself? And as you and I both know, it's like it doesn't exist. Otherwise,
No.
Everyone would have done that. But I was like, tanning salons. Okay, this is tanning salons. Like, think about this, like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm from Missouri. We had a lot of those.
Tanning salons, right? So I was like, okay, there's a machine. The machine does all the work, and there's a attendant in the front, you know, so pretty simple. So there was a tanning salon for sale, and the financials were pretty good. So I purchased the tanning salon business. And funny enough, I had a lot of fun just owning and operating this little tanning salon, more fun than I did, you know, at this like corporate gig. And so I decided to exit. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a leap of faith. And at the time, my idea was to, I figured out the tanning salon model and how to make it successful. So I'm like, let me just replicate that. And that's what I embarked on doing. So one of the strategies was to have every square footage be like usable square footage. For whatever reason, tanning salons had these like huge lobbies that there was nothing
Nobody
to be
using.
sold, or they sold bathing suits, which nothing wrong with selling bathing suits, but like you can't really do a lot of bathing suit sales there. So I created a beauty bar where we offered services that were cutting edge at the time. So like eyelash extensions before anyone was doing that, threading before anyone was doing that. Lots of different products where people can come to that location. They're obviously going there to look good, right? So why don't we give them as many options as possible to be like a one-stop shop?
It was like a cross sell.
Yeah,
Was
it
it
is.
like
Coming in for the tanning, and you're gonna sell them on the eyelashes.
Yeah, and then we had skincares. You can get a facial there. You can do your eyelashes there. You can get your brows threaded there. All that stuff. And so we didn't have cosmetics. And I thought, okay, well, let me
Build my own.
put my own cosmetics line there. And again, like had I known all the challenges that I've encountered now, I would still have made the decision, because I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys today had I not. But that's kind of where it started. I'm like, I have my own retail distribution with my tanning salon chains. And so...
Oh, so you started opening multiple tanning salons?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would find underperforming tanning salons, and usually it was the owner-operator that really didn't understand how to operate a business, because there were very few barriers to entry to own a tanning salon. You could just buy the beds, lease a space, and boom, there you go. But as you guys know, there's marketing, there's sales, there's employee management, there's so many things that go into it. So one salon I got for free, actually. I was
They're like, here, take it, we're done.
well, I targeted that salon because it was right by a university, Cal State Fullerton here, and it was in a Target shopping center. It's a really good location, but they were so in the red. I was like, I will give you, I don't know, it was like $5,000 or $10,000 just for your customer list for you to just walk away, and I would renegotiate the lease with the landlord. They were very offended, and they decided not to take the deal. But then the landlord locked them out anyways because they didn't make their lease obligations.
Yeah.
So then I called the landlord and I said, okay, I'll take this over for you. So they gave me free rent for like a year or something, to remodel and to get it up and running again. I contacted the owner again and I said, okay, I'll give you the $5,000 or $10,000 I had offered you for the customer list, because that's what I really needed. And so basically I was back in business with that salon, just...
And they said yes that time.
And I got all the equipment for free because they abandoned basically their lease.
Wow.
So, yeah. So stories like that.
So how many of those did you build?
3.
3 of
Yeah,
those?
3. I stopped because then I started the cosmetics line, and it started to take off. So with the tanning salons, you can only reach a small geographic community, right? Like you can only touch, really, it's a 3 to 5 mile radius of potential patrons within that area. With the cosmetics line, obviously, you can reach the sky's the
Wherever
limit.
you want.
Every female or a man in on the universe, right? So I started having some traction there, and
Well, how did you start that? Like, I
Well,
know you said, hey, I want to put cosmetics here because you had experience in it, but how did you, go about, hey, I want to start manufacturing my own brand and creating that?
it was just through contacts and relationships. Again, at the time, there's no Google, right? So you can't just Google, who makes cosmetics and, call them. So it's just purely relationship driven. And even, today, there are very few companies you can't, unless you're like an Etsy kind of a company where you're making small batches in your home with very natural products. If you're trying to mass produce anything, very few manufacturers will even talk to you because there's so many people that want to. I don't want to.
You're going to waste their time.
Well, yeah, because it's a lot of time, a lot of resources, and ultimately, there are minimum order quantities, MOQs, and most people, when you start out, you can't hit those quantities. It's just too many. So it was through relationships that I started the initial line of products.
Well, I'm curious, did you see a gap in the marketplace to decide I'm going to create my own products versus just sell some other product line?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is almost 13 years ago now, and basically there was high-end product, and then there's like drugstore products. And at the time, there wasn't really something quite in the middle. And then so I wanted to hit that like middle market. We call it affordable luxury, where it's still accessible to, you know, average everyday person, but at really great price points. And beyond that, all of the products were multifunctional, long wear, innovative. So a lot of the time, most women say, you know, I don't have time to do makeup. But really, it should be something that you can do very quickly and easily, and shouldn't take, you know, blocking off that much time in your schedule to do. So I wanted to give women the tools to like look good and feel good in a very short amount of time.
What's an example of that?
So
Like, you're not talking to the most educated makeup guys here, so.
Sure. Really? So
And what's a lot of time?
But we are going to try it later, Gabe, right?
Yeah.
you have to take all my tips and tricks, and I want you to show me what you've learned today. So, like, as an example, most women struggle with lip products. And it's like they put on the lip product, and it's like you put it on multiple times a day. It's like always reapplying. So I created a product called Liplock, and it has a primer in it. Primer, think of it similar to like when you're painting the house, you prime the walls first. Prime the lips, you put the product on, and it stays put. So we've been talking for what, like even before this, like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And my lip color is still there. It's still vibrant. I'm not having to reapply. And you'd be hard pressed, like even throughout the day, to find me like reapplying, you know, lip color. So even something as simple as just applying a lip color and not having to continually reapply the product is an example of like making something easier for a woman to just use the product without having it disrupt her day, really. Creating innovative products for you know, the marketplace, and that's really where our products differentiated themselves. Because initially when I started, this is when e-com was just getting going. So I thought, I'm going to just, you know, put the products on the web, then it'll sell. And we're going to yacht, sipping bubbly, and like that'll just right into the sunset. And that just didn't quite happen. So it was many different iterations of modifying the marketing messaging to really understand where the brand can fit in the marketplace. Because it's a very saturated, I wouldn't call it saturated. There's a lot of players.
Competitive.
Yeah. It's competitive, and there's a lot of players in the market, but it really was figuring out, you know, what retailers to align, like where are we going to distribute this product? Because just because I know it's cool and it doesn't get into the hands of consumers, then it doesn't matter, right?
Wait, so to back up just one sec, so you still have the 3 salons, and, and now you get this idea that, hey, this product can go bigger, and you're trying to find that place to get traction. Mm-hmm. And so was it a conscious decision, I'm going to run these salons still simultaneous until I get to this place where, I assume you don't own those anymore, do you?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
I got out
at some
at a good
point
time,
you're going to let go of those.
Right.
But
It
you were
wasn't-
intentional, right? Like there's this redundancy pattern I see, you know, like school in 16 and, you know, owning salon or owning the retail, and then you're working on your MBA and owning, you know, the tanning salons, and then I even see it now, you know, you're a mom and you're running a business. It's like there must be some reason you just like pain, or you're like glutton for punishment or
just
something.
like to be very productive. No, I it wasn't intentional to like start the cosmetics line to think it was going to replace the tanning, because at the time there was no revenue for the cosmetics line. It was actually the tanning salon was funding, you know, that operation. So it was more or less like, okay, you know, what can I do with this? It was more of a challenge to see if it had any legs. And so after the first year, I was like, you know, maybe there's something here. And I think I just kept exploring more options. You guys are in sales, right? It's like you don't accept no. It's like a not right now. So
Right,
it's like, okay, you just kind of,
exactly.
you know, figure out who is going to say yes or give you an opportunity, or give them enough reason to give you an opportunity. And very quickly, I recognized that the cosmetics company could potentially have much more opportunity than those tanning salons, because as I explained, just the regional
reach, yeah.
reach. So finally, we had some accounts here and there, and I converted one of the tanning salon rooms way in the back of the salon to like my international offices of the world. So it's basically a 10 by 10 office that used to have a tanning bed in it. Took the tanning bed out, put like a tiny little desk in, and it was next to the restroom, like similar, like
Right.
this far from the restroom, and there was a hallway, and there was a buyer that was coming to meet me from one of the TV shopping networks. So this is like a big opportunity. So imagine the buyer, hi, I'm here to see Manna Kadar. And, you know, welcome to Island Tan. I'm here to see Manna Kadar. Okay. And so the associate walks her to my international offices of the world in the back. So she's passing these tanning salon beds. You hear the beds go, and you hear someone getting spray tan, and you hear the tanning, self-tanning machine go, turn to the right, turn to the left, lift your arms. And, you know, so this lady is like walking down like literally my tanning salon to go to my office to meet me about my cosmetics company and potentially put me on air for TV. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I think we need to grow up and have our own independent offices. Like if we have opportunities like this where legit buyers are coming in and they have an interest in the company, I think we need to finally take the leap and have our own dedicated offices where we look professional. But the funny thing was that the buyers who I still talk to now really appreciated that it started from something like that, because, you know, you have to really be careful with your resources when you first get started.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to have double rent and double the staff. And, you know, there were many times where we did get that TV shopping deal, by the way.
I was going to ask.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, tanning salon employees were packaging things in the tanning salon, and like customers have to go over boxes to go to their tanning. So I think everyone was just trying to was so supportive. They're like, okay, I came with a tan. I'm happy to go past boxes. And but we finally did have to move into our own offices, and shortly thereafter, that's when like, you know, we really took off. And
I love that though.
Yeah.
It reminds us of us. I think I speak for him, but it's the same thing. You know, all these successful brands you get to that you feel like overnight, like Jama. People are like, where did they come from? She's like, well, 20-some years of hard work and being scrappy. You know, it's
right.
And we had to make those sacrifices too. Like, it's not fake it till you make it, but how are you like ultra resourceful and innovative with not bleeding out in order to take that next step and level
Sure.
up? And
Sure.
I think people, like you were saying, they really respect when they see it. You know, especially people who have lived it are like, hey, I understand and appreciate that.
Well, what's interesting is you mentioned, you know, for manufacturing, you need to have a certain amount of volume to, you know, make it where it's somebody will talk to you. And then you mentioned there's you know, it was connections that helped you. Because, you know, manufacturing, you know, cosmetics is not an easy thing.
Sure.
And so, you know, how do you do that in the beginning when you don't have the volume, you don't have the, you know, the TV, you know, orders, you know, how does that start?
So I think one of the things that I've always been good at is sales, right, and selling. So I recognize that at the time there were beauty box companies that were just starting to come up. So think of like the Birch boxes, and do you know what those are?
Yeah.
So for a certain dollar amount per month, you pay for that. Like there's the box of goodies that you get. And so I had known one of the founders of one of those box companies, and I thought, okay, you know, in order to get certain MOQs, they had a pretty decent subscriber count at the time. So I would sell product to them, in addition, manufacture extra run for me, and it was a really great model in that.
What a leverage point.
Yeah, I got product into the hands of people, so you can use my product, see, feel, touch it. I got paid for the product that I put in this box, and then also I can manufacture extra for myself. You know, I may not have needed 5, 10, 20,000 units, but I met the MOQ by doing a lot of these subscription box companies, and then I would get exposure, brand recognition, you know, all
That's
of that
genius.
good stuff. Yeah,
I love that.
So a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, you know, mentors or people that have helped them along the way. You know, a lot of the stories are, hey, I didn't just, you know, you figure a lot of the stuff out on your own, but are there people, or were there people that supported you? Or, I mean, I guess the person that you met and the, you know, selling the boxes, could be somebody that with a contact that helped you. But when you look back, is there anybody that supported you through this?
I know you want the answer to be yes.
No, it doesn't have to be
Well,
yes. If it's no, it's like that's amazing.
I think in this industry, in the beauty industry, fortunately, we do have a very supportive group of people. So, to your point, the contact one of the founders at Birchbox, I always felt comfortable reaching out and saying, what do you think about this? Like, it wasn't necessarily like a mentor relationship, but it was very much like a sounding board.
Yeah.
Brainstorm think tank. Actually, prior to COVID, I actually put together a beauty think tank of many different entrepreneurs within beauty, and we would share successes, challenges, how can we help each other, that kind of thing. So we did a lot of that, and many of us have supported each other with new opportunities, or someone's going through something, like how can we help them, whether it's like different resources or just to be an ear, and some people have exited, yay, let's celebrate. And so I feel that the industry has done a lot of that, and so just by virtue of having that internal network and support system within the industry, it's kind of like everyone is
Supportive of each other.
Yeah, willing to help each other.
Empathetic to your position.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that decision, though, to almost like subcontract your manufacturing through Birchbox. Where's that idea come from? Because if you just turn on Shark Tank and there's 10 manufacturers that are on that show, they're there because they've kind of hit a critical stage to where they've got to be able to reduce their manufacturing costs and those things, and they're giving half their company away because they can't solve a problem that you creatively figured out how to do a different way. And that's got to be a pretty huge moment for you to level up to that next stage in the company. Did it just come to you, or? Yeah,
pretty much. It was just, when you're trying to find a solution to something and you really want to make it work, it's like you find a solution and you make it work, right? So that's what happened in that situation. I needed to be creative in finding a way to meet these MOQs, right? So to be clear, I was still manufacturing these products. The solution I was giving to these box companies, which ended up being a really great revenue stream, is I would give them cool, unique product to include in their box, because that box was a place of discovery for their consumers that are purchasing it every month. It's like, you want something cool, like you don't want the same thing every month, and it's not interesting, right? And so I would intentionally create product similar to this little product that I was telling you about that was really unique and different, so that when their subscribers did open it up, it was a really cool experience to go, oh, okay, I want more of this
Which is like test marketing.
Yeah,
you were doing
it really was. And to this day, like we still have repeat customers from like way back when they received the box from a long time ago. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing? You get through that phase. What's the next step in that journey?
I'm exhausted now, just like going back through this. I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of work.
We need to document the whole journey out of this podcast. And
let's see. So from there, so then it kind of snowballed into like legit SKUs and.
Are you taking money along the way, or are you getting investors? This is all on your own.
I still have never had any investors.
Wow. That's incredible.
Still, I've been self-funded this entire time.
That's
is
amazing.
It incredible, or is it like, should it? I don't know. So some days I'm like, maybe I should have investors, but I really like to be accountable to myself, and not to a group of people. So it makes it easy just to self-fund, and my wins are my wins, and my failures are my fail forward moments, and
I love how gracefully she substituted the word control for accountable. Like that was masterful.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it's hard, when you're used to doing your own thing, and when you accept funding. I mean, it's
you have opinions coming your way.
Yeah. So. After that point, it was really, okay, well, how are we going to get this to market and to as many hands as possible to really build the brand? So, we started with some retailers who believed in the brand. And what we've done really well as a brand is create really beautiful product at affordable prices, right? So, like, you can go buy one lip gloss or lipstick for $30, $40, and not everyone can do that. And it's expensive, right? So you can buy one of ours for between 10 and $20, and it looks really pretty on your nightstand. And so that's where we really hit our stride. And then from color cosmetics, then we created Bath. And with Bath, after that was done, we created men's, which you've experienced, and you're great models for Mason Man. And
this is why we look so good. We
obviously.
use your products.
Obviously, no, just kidding. You guys woke up that way, right?
Yeah.
And after men's, and we have hair, and we have skincare, and it kind of went on and on.
You tried to use your hair products, it didn't work so well.
It backfired.
So now we have a whole family of brands, and we're distributed globally in over 44,000 retailers, and we have some really cool opportunities coming up next year. And
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So cool.
44,000? Wow.
We may double that next year.
So you're in Nordstrom's, right?
We're in Ulta, Macy's, Bed Bath, Urban Outfitters, and then like a bunch of other retailers globally that may not be noticeable to.
Yeah. Do you sell direct to consumer online too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So let's pivot. First time we met you was in Park City last year with Alder, and you were leading a discussion with probably 150, 200 people around kind of women in business and what that's like. It's also where we got to meet Nancy. She was passionately involved in that discussion.
Yes.
And she's awesome. Hi, Nancy. One of the things you said in that discussion was that people would ask you, like, did your parents fund this? Did your husband fund this? All that. First of all, I was shocked. I remember looking at you when she said that. We were sitting next to each other. I was like, well, we got to talk to her and get her on our podcast because this is an interesting topic. I'm just shocked somebody would even ask that to begin with. And so I guess it's real, right? People have asked you that before?
People ask all sorts of interesting things. I remember when I was at SC, and sorry if this sounds pretentious and lame, but like, you know, the car to drive back then was like, you know, the BMW 3 Series. And I remember like purchasing my own. And one of my friends that was in the class, we were getting in my car to go grab a meal, and he was like, oh, did your dad get this for you? And I was like, no.
Did you open the door and let him out?
I mean, but it was like a legit question for the time, and I've gotten many iterations of that kind of question, and I'm not really sure why that's the case, but yeah, I've got that question many
What does that
times.
stir up when people say, oh, did your husband fund this? I think that's what you said maybe in that thing. Like,
usually it's people that don't know me that well that ask that question. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt because perhaps they think that I'm so youthful looking that how could I possibly? No,
that's a nice way.
That's a
nice way to give people the benefit of the doubt.
I don't know. I'm not really sure where that comes from. If anything, it gives me more pride in going, I did this myself, and then they're a little bit dumbfounded and don't know really what to say at that point. And I really don't take it, offensively.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, in your baking experience and being in this kind of, stodgy, old, probably white male industry. It didn't sound like you didn't, allow anything to hold you back. But what was like that experience where, when you do run into things that feel sexist or, that feel like you're being treated differently because you're a woman versus being, a man? What is that? How do you, respond to that?
So it was a little bit interesting in that I don't know if there was like any sexism or like I don't know what it was. It was just like it was like a bro club, just a bunch of guys, and they're like their inside jokes and chuckles and whatever it was. And so like you're kind of just outside this circle, right? Like they're not welcome, come on in. It wasn't like that. So I don't think it's any different from overcoming any other obstacle, whether it's like a business challenge or you just have to do the work and prove that you're badass. And after that, no one has really any other opinion other than she's freaking badass, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else to talk about, you know? So I wasn't trying to be like BFFs with these guys. I just wanted to prove myself to them, and all of a sudden, then you're in on all the conversations, and then they want you to come join them for all the happy hours, and that's fine. And so a lot of times when I do hear that I don't earn enough, or like when I hear maybe perhaps other female or men say, you know, they don't earn enough, they weren't given X opportunity or Y, it's like, okay, well, you know, well, how do we overcome that then? Like, how do we earn more? You know, do we ask for more? Like, have we asked for more? Yes, no? I don't know the answer to that for these specific situations, but, you know, in my case, I just had to take that into my own hands, and then all of that was really a non-issue, right? So,
it just sounds like you step into it and say, "Here I am," kind of.
Well, it's really just
prove my own value.
Yeah,
deciding not to have like a victim mentality, right? That
Right.
just driving it. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You see it out there. Certain people's conditions, they allow themselves to be conditioned to
Sure.
a victim mentality versus I'm gonna drive through this. You know,
Right.
Where's that? Because there's obviously a lot of drive / motivation to do all the things. Even taking a job at 16 in a old white guy's industry takes drive.
What do you mean buying a business? You know?
Yeah, all that. Where does that motivation come from? Is it innate? Or
Yeah,
was
not
there
everybody at
something-
16 decides to run their own
No,
business.
I think it comes from mom. Like, you were sharing a story with another person you had on the podcast, and so mom had like a really challenging story. So, you know, she and my dad, they were in Paris, and he was just not a good guy. He was, you know, abused alcohol, drugs, abused her. My only memory that I have of him was like him like literally like beating her, and I closed the door and I put Scotch tape on the door because that's
gonna keep him out.
yeah, well, I don't know. I think I was maybe like 2 or 3
Oh, geez.
at the time, and that's all I remember. But, you know,
Wow.
she, my grandmother came to raise me when I was 7 days old. And kind of like that movie, like Not Without My Daughter, we literally fled in the middle of the night. And she had, you know, just, she had like some gems and like just.
This is in France?
In France. And so meanwhile, you have to remember, like, she's an immigrant from Vietnam. She doesn't really, she speaks French, but like not fluently. And then she's like fleeing to go to another country because dad was ready to marry me off and send me back to Lebanon.
How old were you?
I think 3.
Oh, was ready to marry you off at 3?
Or
Like
Arranged.
commit me
like
to,
a plan. Like
to
this
my
is who
hubby.
you're gonna
my,
be with.
my hubby to be.
Wow.
So she was just like, nope, like we're not having this. So she found her way, you know, to America, the land of opportunity, and she worked, you know, in the morning. She was at 3 a.m. She was at the bakery. Then after that, she went to work at a preschool kitchen. And after that, she worked at the restaurants in the evening. And then meanwhile, she got a cosmetology license so she could do nails. And she eventually, you know, she kept progressing to other jobs that were ultimately she went to work at the post office that had good benefits, you know, just one job. She didn't have to do 3 anymore. But I saw her doing this, and I recognized just the sacrifice. And like grandma was at home and she was sewing items piecemeal, and I remember like she would sew these belts, and you have to make the corners of these belts like sharp. So I would get a chopstick, and I was like 5, and I was, you know, making sure the corners were sharp, and it was like a team effort. It was like
Wow.
3 of us, and
That's
we're like,
amazing.
we're doing this. And so, and you know, she always really believed like education, that is how we're going to get out of this, or not out of the situation. That's how we're going to have more opportunity,
Improve.
success.
Yeah.
And she didn't always love that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, because that was not very safe.
She did or did not?
Did not.
Did not.
It was not very safe at all. She loved when I was in corporate banking.
Yeah.
You know, because it's okay, safe. You know, and but she was. I'm an only child, so she was like, okay, well, okay. So
She embraced it after
she
a while.
did, and
She's like, this kid's different.
She's like, oh, it's so difficult, but different. So that's where it comes from. I think just,
Mom setting the pace.
Mom setting the pace.
What was your grandmother like?
Grandmother, she was always my advocate. Like she had an arranged marriage herself, and this is old school. Like this is, 90s.
Where did she grow up in?
She grew up in Vietnam. So
Okay.
they were Chinese that grew up in Vietnam. And she and my mom always had like a difference of opinion. So it's like my mom would say the sky's blue, my grandma was like it's purple. Like they just always fought. But they're both great. Grandma's awesome.
Is she still around?
She is in hospice care right now.
Okay.
So, but she's lived a long.
What does she think about your success?
She still doesn't get it. Like she's like, so she thinks I sell like cosmetics like from a catalog and like, I'm just taking orders and there's nothing wrong with that. She doesn't quite understand what I do, but she's just concerned that I'm happy.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. I think my grandma's the same way. I don't know if she knows what we do either, but they're just happy to see you happy.
How about your mom?
Yeah.
What does she think about it
My
now?
mom passed a couple years ago.
I'm sorry.
And, I think what was really cool was I always told her, Mom, I'm never having kids. I'm like, forget it. I'm sorry. I know I'm an only child, but just, and then I met my husband. And then she was able to, spend 4 years with her grandkids. But she saw the company get to a point where, like, she saw me on TV, like, doing the TV shopping thing. She saw, like, the magazine cut. Like, she saw it happen. And, she's been with me when I've been able to accept awards. And it was really important for me to include her so that she could see, like, Mom, like, you did this. Like, you helped do this. So,
That's cool.
it was awesome. Yeah.
What you and Gabe were talking before we started the podcast about some of the community work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did that come to fit into all the other busyness in your life?
So Mom goes back to Mom again. She really, although we had very, very little when I grew up, like she always, like gave back. So, she would have me volunteering at the temple. Like I remember when our Buddhist temple had just built a library and I literally barcoded every book in that library. And we went on these missions to give supplies out to these communities in Tijuana. And I remember like we had really little, but we had took this big truck over there and we were handing out candy and these kids were just overjoyed with one piece of candy. And we would visit these mud huts that people would live in. And I was blown away by how simple these people's lives were, but they all seemed to embrace what they had. It was like, that there wasn't like, oh, woe is me. They were really grateful that we brought supplies, and they all seemed to enjoy life, so it just kind of gave me a different perspective on things. And ever since then, it was like, whether, time, talent, treasure, right? So, I finally got to a point where I could give all three of those things. And so now, with my husband, he grew up a little bit different in that he wasn't as involved with volunteering. So now it's like a whole family affair where we have even like our little ones come and like put boxes of things together with Miracles for Kids we were talking about. And so that they can understand how they can give back in even the smallest way.
You mentioned
awesome.
Miracles for Kids, and
Yeah.
it came at a good time for you. What was that about? What does that mean?
Yeah, so Miracles for Kids, fellow alder member of ours, Autumn Stryer, who's amazing, started this group, and it's to support underprivileged kids with families at or below poverty level. And they just help families in need as a parent, it just breaks my heart to think that these families that are just struggling financially now have this unbearable burden of, a sick kid. And I remember there was a day that I was supposed to bring the kids to go volunteer at Miracles to put these boxes together. And my daughter, who's 6 now, she was really, like, she was just like projectile vomiting everywhere. And it was hard for me and it was hard for her. And I was like, oh my God, like these families have to live with this daily for, I don't know how long until their kid is better, hopefully,
Yeah.
if their kid ever gets better, you know. And I just, it was such, to just be in that for just that one day, it was just like, it was heavy. And
Yeah.
so, you know, we support them heavily. Like, we very, very proudly donate a ton of product to, now we can support the whole family, right? We have men's products, women's products,
Yeah.
bath, so that not just, you know, the kids all have fun toys and stuff, but like I want to make sure that mom has just a little something for herself, dad has something a little bit for himself, like brothers and sisters, and everyone just has a little treat, because there's not a lot of light in their life, like in that chapter that they're going through.
Your kids are 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
What when you do that, like what kind of questions or interaction do they have afterwards?
I think it's well, it's like, okay, well, why don't these kids, like we just did Christmas, you know, wrapping with them, or more specifically back to school. Well, why don't they have backpacks? Why don't they have pencils? And I mean, because they do, like, they, you know,
Right.
no one's gifting us any of that. I'm like, because, you know, they don't have, they've had a different situation that has happened in their lives, and we are in a position to be able to help them. And I'll point out, like, okay, well, you know, here's the kid that's sick, it's this age, but they also have these siblings, and their siblings need the backpacks too. So it's really for them to understand that, help them recognize that they are very fortunate to have the lives that they have, and also recognize that people live differently. Because I know you guys are in San Diego County, Orange County, it's like there's no litter outside. Like, you know, they just live in this utopia.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we travel anywhere else in the country or in the world, like, it's not like this. So, yeah, so there's just, kids ask the weirdest questions too, right? Like, can we go
Right.
play with them? Like, sure. Like, let's figure it out. So, yeah.
Well, you mentioned you told your mom that you weren't planning to have kids. Obviously, that wasn't
That
true.
changed.
Maybe it was true at the time, but what was it? What was the change?
My husband.
It was a mandate.
No, it was one of those things where I think I hadn't found the right person that I wanted to create a family with, because the way I grew up, like, we didn't have any type of traditional family, right? It was
Yeah.
me, my mom, and grandma, and poor mom, the guys that she did she just was unlucky in love. I mean, just never quite worked out for her. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to bring a kid into this world and deal with that situation, you know. So and grandma had a tough situation with her husband, grandpa, too. So there wasn't great father figures around, and there wasn't an example of a solid family. So it didn't make sense to me logically to do that.
Does any of that create hardship in your relationship with your husband to not have a male presence growing up, or?
I don't think so, because I think we're both really independent, and we got married late. We had kids later. Like, I had first when I was 36 and 37. We got married when we were almost 40 each. So we both very much do our own thing and have our own companies and live our own lives. And so,
You just kind of opt in on making each other happy
Yeah.
together, but
yeah,
independently happy as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the best kind of relationship.
And I think, like, we both understand that, like, we come from different backgrounds, so there is some grace that we need to give each other for certain situations. But I think he's had some familial issues too, and so we very much both came in with our eyes wide open of what we wanted to create for our family, which is very different in a lot of ways than what both he and I grew up with.
Yeah,
So.
take the best of each world and put them together.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
This whole cosmetic world. It sounds like you come from this place and talking about the giving back of this idea of self-care, and that sounds like I hear that from you. That's really important. Why is that?
Are you talking about her getting in a cold tub soon?
Yeah. no,
If
but
if her husband's listening, she committed to 3 minutes in the cold plunge today.
I remember and I can't speak to the mottos that you have, but there's, you just have this motto of, looking good, feeling good.
Yeah.
And so is that just something that you've always felt, or is this a marketing thing that, you came up with?
I do firmly believe that. Like, even during COVID, remember when everyone was just like, I give up, I'm going to be in sweats. And, I literally did my hair and makeup every day, came to the office, came dressed.
Yeah, you always look good.
Thank you. Thank you. I may or may not have gold Uggs on.
I know Mia was like, I can't even find a picture of her not looking dialed out.
But, I made it a point to put myself together, because when I do that, I feel better about myself.
Put your A game jacket on.
Yeah, like, and then then I have my A game on all the time. Like, if you can imagine, like, someone rolling in here, like, well, I don't want to buy cosmetics from her because she looks like someone ran her over by a car. It's just like
you got to be your own billboard.
You really do, and I feel like it's a few minutes for myself too. It's almost like its own meditative moment, in your day where. I don't know what men do. Like, maybe it's doing.
I mean, when I'm doing my hair, I feel the same way. Like,
well, you have to. It's like, isn't it kind of like therapeutic?
It kind of is, yeah.
Right, and so.
Although my wife hates that at the end of the day, she'll be doing this whole strip down process of taking things off and then adding things on. And I kind of come in and brush my teeth, grab some stuff and slap it around, don't wash my face. And she's just appalled by it. So I think that's my next step in my self-care journey, is like learning some of that stuff.
Well, I volunteer to help you. Yes, I think it's important, and not just like the makeup thing, but when we were in Ojai together, we did yoga together, and I was like, hey, there's this crystal session that is like an energy healing Reiki, and a couple times a year I take solo locations, like husband's at home with the kids, and I go by myself somewhere. I bring books, and sometimes I'm at a retreat where it's very specific. Other times I'm just at a resort. I'm just there with my own thoughts and just doing my own things. I have some time to just decompress.
Yeah, you need it.
And so, there's a lot of that I think it's really important, because then you can get centered, and life gets very hectic and busy. And
absolutely.
Like, even I'm going through a move right now, and I notice myself off of my, like, I'm not at equilibrium right now. Like, I'm more on like a stressor behavior, and I notice there's a change in how I am on a day-to-day basis, and I don't like that. And so, because I've recognized it, I'm like, okay, I can't put some things to the side. Like, I need to make time for those things so that I get back to equilibrium.
Yeah, I think it's my wife talks about filling your cup, because when your cup's filled, it's easy to pour over for everybody else.
You get some, and you get some. But if you have any left over, then it's like, I'm dehydrated. I need more water.
We went through this process with a leadership company out of Orange County here called Evolution. I forget what the personality trait one we did with her was called. You do all these, right? But it gave you like your solid state personality, then it gave you your stressor state. And it was really interesting because, it really nailed who you were under like severe distress. And then we educated each other so we could recognize like what state of mind are each of the people we interact with doing, and is it good or bad, and how do we engage them when they're in either state, and it was really powerful, because I'd never thought about the context that we kind of have two personalities, like when we're super happy and not stressed, and a different one when we are. And once you are made aware of it, it's like, oh, I can really interact with people differently, knowing where they're at.
We did a Berkman, so we have something similar here where everyone on the team had done that as well. But yeah, I think it's really great to recognize that, like, and even like recognizing it within ourselves, because then you can correct that, right? Like, if someone else is super stressed out, you can just try to like tiptoe around them, but it'd be really nice if they just got back to where they needed to be, so that everyone can just be normal, versus having to be on eggshells, right, the entire time.
Well, awesome. We just have a few questions left.
What is the fashion trend that's going in the wrong direction?
There's something called slothing, and there's do you know what slothing is?
No.
No.
It's like where you put like gel everywhere, and it's just like you look like a sloth. Like it's just like gel everywhere. And then, as you guys may recall in the '90s, where it's like everything from the '90s is coming back. Those ugly shoes.
Oh, yeah,
and
my
the-
daughter's in all this stuff. I'm like, oh, this is horrendous.
the low-rise jeans where it's just
Yeah.
it's awful. And
Yeah.
the jelly shoes, they have jelly Prada shoes, and like people are paying $1,000 for those. It's awful.
I blame Stranger Things. Like Stranger Things, I feel like started that. Now my daughter dresses like the Stranger Thing, and all her friends. I'm like, why is this happening? Like this
This
should
is a
never
Stranger
come
Thing
back.
that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's-
Mia, did you know what slothing was? Okay. Well,
you
we
should.
all learned
Don't
something
ever
new.
do it. Just you know what? Just don't Google it. Don't Google it.
All right, next question. This will be an interesting one. If you sent a text to the current president, what would it say?
We must repeal the China tariffs. Not can we?
Were you in?
When are you going to repeal the China tariffs?
You weren't with us with Pompeo in New York, were you?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Yeah, that was really interesting.
We were there in New York together for the Navy SEAL Ball
Yeah.
with
That's right.
Pompeo. Little did we know it was the epicenter of COVID. We all went home, and then it was like, New York
Well-
shut down, COVID.
Well, remember when we got there, like Times Square was full, and by the time we left, it was empty.
I didn't even know we were in Times Square. The next morning after the gala or ball or whatever, I walked out and somebody asked me to take a picture of him. And there was nobody out there, right?
Naked
I'm like,
cowboy
sure. And I
on.
take a picture of him. I'm like, why'd you want a picture anyway? They're like, we've never been to Times Square. I'm like, oh my God, this is Times Square?
And we didn't
Nobody's
realize
here.
we were at ground zero of COVID
Yep.
at the time.
It was amazing.
Good times.
So this is a hard one. Favorite and worst food?
Worst is like durian, which is a fruit that smells disgusting.
Oh, yeah, it does. It's horrible.
Favorite, I usually love a really great pasta.
Right.
Especially in the holiday season. I feel like pastas and Italian food just matches that.
Like a bolognese.
Yeah. Okay. All-time favorite Netflix show? Or any show, I guess. But people are always looking for the next Netflix craze.
This is awful because I only watch Hallmark movies. And I'll tell you why. This goes into the whole self-care thing because they talk about like whatever you digest, what you bring in, like what you
Right.
see.
You're manifesting
hear.
it.
Yeah. So there's so much stuff that we're already, we're getting thrown at us that we may or may not like. And so
So all-time favorite Hallmark movie is The Pivot.
I don't know where the all-time, like I don't know the names of them, but it's a Christmas one of some sort. It's a happy ending.
Okay.
Someone falls in love and they get married and it's a happy ending.
All right. Perfect.
All right, this one's fun. Most overrated place you visited and the most underrated place you visited from traveling.
Cabo and Cabo.
I like that.
Well said.
Depends on where in Cabo you are.
Yeah. All right, so I know you're not afraid to check off the bucket list, but what's left at the top of the bucket list that you haven't checked off yet?
Okay, I would love to have boysIImen at like a private party, or New Kids on the Block, or both at a private party for me at some point in time.
Oh my gosh, we got to connect her to Wayne.
Wayne, yeah.
Oh my God.
Who's Wayne?
Wayne goes on New Kids on the Block cruises.
Yeah, literally.
Oh, Chris is, I don't know if
Literally.
I want to be stuck with like that many 40-year-old women, but
No, but it's Rick's boss. They came out.
he goes on all the cruises, like
Not
voluntarily.
all, but it was a
He's
bucket
got a
list that
few.
he checked the box
Did he like
on.
it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Like we'll put you
introduce
guys
you.
in
You'll like
contact.
him.
Okay,
They have a lot of iHeartRadio contacts, so maybe they can make it happen for you.
we'll pay for the experience, but yeah.
So what's next for you or for the company?
I feel like there are some things that we need to achieve as a company. Like we're very fortunate to have an amazing team of people. There's some other metrics that we want to like figure out as a company to become more well-rounded as a whole, with distribution, product mix, some things like that. So it can be a nice, well-oiled machine.
You mentioned you're planning to double next year in stores.
We have some really cool opportunities. So like, as a brand, we have different products, right? But then we have our more luxe brand that's called MannaKadar Then we have our value channel brand that's called Goddess. So those are like really, really affordable luxury items. And so next year we have opportunities with some retailers that have, I mean, major doors. So it's not like, I always say it's not the sexy thing to do. Like, it's sexy to be at Ulta or Sephora, right? But, you know, these value channels, believe it or not, like the volume is tremendous. And
That'd be like a Rite Aid or something like that, or what?
like a Dollar Tree.
Okay, yeah.
You know, dollar stores or Dollar General, or, you know, I mean, it's really, really incredible, like the volume that goes through there. And it just goes to show, like, that's really where the population is. Like you talked about, you know, where you came from. It's like, not everyone shops at Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus. That's just a small fraction. Like,
Totally.
the majority of the world, you know, they buy from these retailers. And it really actually does go back to, like, the roots of, like, you know, we didn't have a lot. Like, how do I give, you know, men and women, pets, children, like, you know, these really cool products that they can be proud of, and not just, you know, a lot of times in those stores, you're getting products that are, they're okay, like, they look okay, they work okay, but they're not great. Usually, you don't go to your friends, you're like, I got this awesome thing from the dollar store. Like, doesn't happen all the time. So I think we can do that in beauty.
And Gabe's Frenchie's gonna have a makeup product too
We
soon,
have
or?
pet products.
Oh, you do?
Oh, where are they? We have pet products.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called hotdog.
What-
Hot dog.
Just what's a pet makeup product?
There is no pet makeup, so it's like it's
Makes
Like
them
shampoo
makes them
and
smell
things
nice.
like that?
yeah, shampoo, refreshers, sprays, that kind of stuff.
When my dogs come back from the groomers, they put powder or something on them that makes them smell
It's
totally
like-
different
It's a spray.
than when I do.
It's
Yeah,
spray.
it's like Febreze for dogs.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, cool.
So the next part is really about reflecting back. When you look back, and you're reflecting on your journey, and you're talking to your younger self, what kind of advice would you give your younger self now that, you know, given what you know now?
I would say it all works out, and it gets even better. It keeps getting better and better. So despite whatever challenges are in front of you, it'll work out.
Stay the course.
Stay the course.
It passes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the show is called Discover the Manna Difference. Add the manna in there for this episode. So with that in mind, like, what, out of all the things, you know, you give us a lot of sound bites, but out of all those things, what's the secret sauce to MannaKadar?
I think it's, you know, stop talking, start doing.
I like that. Take action.
Take action, do something about it. And I think there's always a solution for a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so let's find the best solution. Let's create opportunity from it.
Awesome. That's great advice.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to get your makeup, they want to get your bath products? Where can they go?
So they can go to mannakadarcosmetics.com, or they can Google us. There's so many retailers that they can find. And then if you guys want to follow us on social, it's at MannaKadar on all the channels.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Manna. We
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed our time,
Thank
and
you.
look forward to getting this produced.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.